podcast number 5, Jules, and the sun is still shining. And sun shining this time of the year, we're going to be talking about Mugello, because Mugello is such a special place, and we got so many memories, so many stories, and right up to date, because there's a right conundrum going on at the moment about the race on Saturday, of course, and Sunday. Congratulations to Michael Dunlop, MBE, of course, Uncle Joey, OBE and MBE. We're going to talk about 2 riders today. In fact, he rode in that very first Grand Prix of Mugello, both MBEs, Barry Sheene and Phil Reed. Toprak dominated Superbikes at Misano, just to say, I'm coming, get ready for me, goodbye World Superbikes, I'm coming in. And then in British Superbikes, which are at Snetterton this weekend, just the 3rd round of British Superbikes, a famous son makes his British Superbike debut. So we've got plenty to get our teeth into, but we have to start with Mugello, don't we? Where do you start? Just
the most
cauldron of fire and brimstone in the Tuscan hills. That's what I've written down. Over to you.
Love it. There's a newspaper man at work. The most beautiful racetrack in the world, without any doubt. And it's going to be sunshine all weekend, apparently. What more could you ask?
What more could you ask? Because the old weather could move in amongst those Tuscan hills very quickly, couldn't it? It was a bit of a microclimate there, wasn't it? Yeah.
In the different valleys. But the question for this weekend, now look, the last 3 races there, which is over the last 4 years, because we missed one due to COVID, the last 3 races that have been won by Pecco Bagnaia.
I think he's unbeaten there, isn't he, since 2022, I believe, in all classes. And yet last year he dominated nearly the sprint and the race. I remember.
He's got.
Well, there we go. Podium at Aragon, but this is the moment, isn't it?
This is when he has got to, and I mean got to, beat Marc Márquez.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, he's basically been handed his backside on a plate. Now, Neil Hodgson, in the broadcast after Silverstone on telly that I was watching, made a very interesting point. Remember, Pecco was really starting to whinge about the bike.
Yes.
About the front end, especially in sprint races, how he can't feel the front, blah, 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 not as good as last year's. Well, at that point, after Silverstone, after however many races it was, he'd scored more points and crashed less than he did in 2024. So by any objective measure, he was doing better than he'd done last year. Yet, Márquez...
But mentally, I don't think so.
Exactly, Nick. This is the... I mean, Pecco Bagnaia, I'm talking about him being mentally done over by his teammate. He's a double world champion, back to back. He is the first Italian champion since Valentino Rossi. He is the first VR46 graduate to win the top title. This is a very significant, really great motorcycle racer. And his teammate is dismantling him.
Yeah, and there's nothing more that Marc Márquez would like to do, I'd say almost this season, than is to beat his teammate on the track where he's loved and adored.
Yes, and unless, in Mark's case, we would see his brother do the dismantling, would be nearly as enjoyable.
I think they both could.
I mean, this is... Forget everybody else on the grid this weekend. You know what it's like, Nick, when one was a journalist, you walked in thinking, right, what's the story? What they talking about? What's the story this weekend? And the story this weekend is Pecco Bagnaia and...
Full stop.
And by Sunday night, it might be, what the hell's he going to do now?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, Michelin are going to World Superbike. I'm off. It's...
and what about a circuit that has corners called San Donato, Arrabbiata 1 and 2, Scarperia, Biandetti. It's got to be the business, right from the word go.
You've just listed a load of right-handers.
Yes,
which Marc Márquez isn't that fond of.
No. Arrabbiata 1 is left, and it's up and away, isn't it?
Yeah, it's left. Yeah, it's a left sweep, isn't it? And then right. But,
he's only won there once, isn't he, in MotoGP?
Yes,
Marc Márquez?
I think so. But it's not. You would never say it's his favourite circuit. You wouldn't say he doesn't like it, but you wouldn't say it's his favourite circuit. And which means I would suggest that he's going to be, as you've said, there's nothing he'd like more than stamping domination on Mugello in the way he did at Aragon.
Yeah, absolutely. And the longest straight in the MotoGP calendar, I think 1,140 metres. I've written down on my notes here 1,140 kilometres.
Blimey, that's a long straight.
I don't know where they're going to end up then, but it's going to be a long way. And the top speed, I think the KTMs, Pol Espargaro and Brad Binder, 227 miles an hour.
I was aware it was factory KTMs. I couldn't remember who the rider was on it.
Yeah. And then I've had the privilege of walking up the inside of the paddock and standing on the rise of the hill where they hitting when I was up there over 220 miles an hour. Some of them going into the entrance of pit lane to get a little bit more.
That's right, to get the line
as they went through. Front wheel in the air, soon as the front wheel touched the ground, on the brakings for the hardest braking zone in MotoGP.
Yes, in the calendar. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I bumped into Sylvain Guintoli once at an airport.
Yeah.
And he must have. He was Suzuki. He must have been doing a replacement ride.
Yeah, for
because he was Suzuki's tester at the time.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll ride at Mugello. Will you ride at Mugello, Sylvain? Because whoever was in, I don't know, Alex or somebody. And he said, yeah, I've ridden 6 Grand Prix at Mugello on a 250. I'm all right. I know the circuit. And he said, and the first time you go over that bump and down towards San Donato at over 300 kilometres an hour, he said, I realise I know nothing.
Yeah. Was it Shinya Nakano had that massive crash there when I think a tyre blew, didn't it?
It was a Brimstone.
I don't know how far he slid, but he slid all the way down to San Donato, I remember.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And he was so lucky to get away with that.
Yeah, and Marquez had a big crash there as well, hadn't he? Marquez had a big crash.
Yeah, he went up the grass on the left-hand side.
Yeah. And I love that final corner because it was after you, Claude, wasn't it? Nobody wanted to go into the final corner first, did they? Because slipstreaming heaven, isn't it?
I can't recall the number of Moto3 riders I've seen throw away victories because they spent the entire last lap worrying.
Yeah, and then I mustn't lead into that last corner.
And then one year, some brave bloke popped up and didn't bother with that and just led them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he got to the flag with a big pass.
Got away. I remember Lorenzo and Marquez once had a fantastic battle. Lorenzo picked him by...
because we were there saying, weren't we? And out of the last corner, Marc Márquez wins the Italian Grand Prix of Mugello. Oh, no, he doesn't. Lorenzo does.
Knowing my commentators, I probably had Marquez winning. Fabulous place. And Rossi heaven, wasn't it? The Rossi. I know Misano and he lived nearby and everything, but Mugello was...
Mugello. It's like Jerez for Spanish racers.
Yeah.
Mugello is the one they want to win because that is the Italian Grand Prix.
And I remember, every time he always played different tricks. He had a helmet with his face on, all the different things. And do you remember the Hawaiian one? And
that was the first one. That was in the 500cc.
It was. And I tell you, I was in a taxi between the London Eye, where we'd been doing some filming and had journalists going around on the London Eye with Valentino Rossi to the BBC at Wood Lane, would it be? Yeah, Wood Lane.
It would have been there, I suppose,
And he was on the phone to his great mate Uchiyo, who was explaining that what his fan club in Hawaii got hold of them. So they said, and they were school kids. What a good idea. Why don't we fly them over? Yes, that's a good idea. Why don't we dress the whole team and the bike in Hawaiian colours, shirts and everything? great idea. Why don't we have a swimming pool out there with some palm trees? They did the lot, didn't they? Absolutely did the lot.
And it rained like the monsoon.
I think it is. Yeah, and talking about rain, of course, the shortest ever Grand Prix was held there in 2004.
The restart.
I bet you were commentating. I was commentating. I was a trifle confused, but I didn't leave the microphone, and I believe some people did.
It wasn't me. Because
it wasn't you. No.
It wasn't me because I was working with somebody who could recite the rule book.
Yeah, I was as well. I was working with Gavin Emmett, who did the rule book very well. You had Toby Moody, did you?
Yeah, the only question was, what distance is left? Does that qualify as 2/3 distance? And then you call it a race?
Oh, I used to get so confused.
It was just under the bar, so they had to restart 6 laps.
There was 19.5 miles, the shortest ever. And Rossi won from Gibernau, but it absolutely led to the flag-to-flag races, which
it was one of
so needed, especially for commentators who weren't quite sure what was going on, but just kept talking.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing worse, is there? Well, folks, the 20 laps you've just watched didn't mean anything.
No.
They turn off. Well, what was I watching it for?
Yeah.
And you used to get. I remember an aggregate race at Mugello. It might even have been the Hawaiian year. But I think did they red flag it for rain and start again? So it's an aggregate race.
I think they did.
You're adding the two halves together.
So confused. So many laps.
A Honda V twin just disappeared to the lead. It might have been one of the Aoki brothers.
It could have well have been, yeah.
And he was leading by like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm on television going, and, Howard Chico, let's say it was Howard Chico, I think it was.
Yeah.
Howard Chico Aoki is leading this watch by 20 seconds. But actually, he's in 21st place, 38 seconds behind the leader. And you can hear people, you can feel them turning their televisions off, can't you?
Yeah, I was saying, who is that bloke? Yeah. But it was, and I remember when Valentino Rossi broke his leg when he crashed the Ducati in the chicane before the final corner.
Yes, yeah.
And they flew him off in a helicopter, and the most unbelievable pictures. There was a woman in the crowd weeping and waving, and out of the helicopter came Valentino Rossi's hand, and he waved back. The crowd were in tears as he flew off in the helicopter.
New experience, Valentino.
Very much so, yeah. He didn't have much success on the Ducati. I remember Stoner winning a flag-to-flag race there on the Ducati, I believe, and Lorenzo had his first ever Ducati win there, didn't he? He did, but we'll wait and see. Back to that first. Sorry.
Apart from Qatar, was his first Ducati win, Casey?
Yes. Yeah. But sorry, I meant Lorenzo's first Ducati win. Yeah,
he didn't have many of.
No, he didn't. I think his first one did come at the right place. I think it came at Mugello.
If our memories fail us, Nick, viewers will be informing us.
They will. And Dr. Martin Rains is probably on the phone now, but I've switched it off. Rainsy, don't worry.
I'll expect a stiffly worded email shortly. Yes.
Yeah. Back to that first ever race, 1976. I was just started at motorcycle news. I remember John Brown coming back into the office. I didn't go to the race and said, "Oh, what a place, that Mugello. Wow." And Phil Reed and Barry Sheene fought a fantastic race there. Both on Suzuki's, which was pretty rare for Phil Reed. It was towards the end of his career. And I think they were separated by 0.01 seconds at the end. And it just, reading about it, made me think about Phil Reed, who passed away last year.
Yes.
Last year for MBE. That another memory because of Michael Dunlop. And do you know, he's probably the most underrated Grand Prix rider. Certainly, I think the most underrated British Grand Prix rider ever.
In the UK, I think when you get abroad and you ask
I think you're right.
or a Spaniard to list the top 6 racers of all time, then Phil Reed's name will be straight in, maybe in the top 3.
Yeah, 7 world titles, And as he always would tell you, 8, because he won the TT Formula One world
Yes,
title.
yes.
He used to get very upset, which wasn't hard for Phil to get very upset if you didn't get things quite as he wanted. But he was the second most successful British Grand Prix rider. Mike Hailwood had 9 wins.
Yep.
And John Surtees and Phil Reed had 7 wins. And we've double checked this, but Dr. Martin Rains, if we got it wrong, let us know. There's only a few riders that have won 3 world championships in different classes.
And
Mike Hailwood was one, Phil Reed, and then more recently, Valentino Rossi and Marc Márquez. And I've really tried hard to find others. I can't, but that doesn't mean that they're not there, to be honest with you.
You go back through history, the people who won big runs like Aggo, he won 350 and 500, not small
classes. Right. No, that's right.
No. All the Americans and Australians never rode in anything other than 500.
But it sort of sums up Phil Reed a little bit for me. He won that 125cc world title in 1968. And let's be honest, he did the dirty, didn't he, on Phil Reed? Yamaha had decided... But did I say Bill Ivy? Sorry, they had decided that Bill Ivy was going to win the 250, and they wanted Phil Reed to win the 125 because he hadn't won the 125cc title.
Yes.
I went to the TT that year, and Bill Ivy set the first ever 100-mile-an-hour lap on a 125. Stopped at Craignabar when he was leading the race very easily, and asked the spectators who was winning. Waited 2 minutes for Phil Reed to go by. Phil Reed won the race, picked up the points, and it was all settled. They got to the last race of the season in Monza, and Phil Reed renegaded on that deal. Phil Reed went and won the 250cc race, won the 250cc World Championship as well as the 125, and Bill Ivy never recovered from it.
No, it was... And Bill was, I never knew, by the way. So I'm going on the books and the history. And,
I don't say I knew him personally.
And the people who were there. But Bill was apparently sort of very much an innocent abroad in many ways.
Yeah.
And he would have never have even thought of behaving in that way. Would never have crossed his mind. And the fact that somebody would do it to him.
And a teammate.
He found...
Bill was not good with teammates, as Aggo found out, and lots of others. But sadly, Bill Ivy decided to give up after that and went car racing and was very useful.
Again.
But he needed more money, so he rode the Jawa.
Yes.
The 4-cylinder 350. Saxon Ring the year after, it was killed in I think qualifying or practice in the rain, and it was a
tragedy. Yes.
Absolute tragedy.
If you look at what contemporary car journalists and racers said about Bill Ivy when they came across him, it was, my God, what have we got here? This is a generational talent on 4 wheels. They were.
But you needed money, as you do now, to go any racing, but car racing in particular.
Yep, it was a rich man's game.
Yeah. I had a lot of time for Phil Reed as a rider, and I actually got on with him quite well as a guy, although I think I was probably in a minority. But I went to Spa, the first time I ever went to Spa, T-Mill Tours, 1974, a few of us, and... scorching hot day, I remember. Phil Reed on the MV against his former teammate, Giacomo Agostini, then on the 2-stroke Yamaha, of course. So off they went through Arouge, disappeared into the forest. We sat there waiting. I think it was probably on the long circuit then. And then suddenly, through the forest, all you could hear was this MV Agusta getting closer and closer and closer. And suddenly, Reed appeared. Absolutely nobody else in sight. Those red leathers, Premier helmet, down through the gearbox to that Lassource hairpin, gone. That was the start-finish area down towards Arouge. I think he won the race by 1 minute 12 seconds over Aggo, but it was You know, when you have something in your sight, in your mind, it was something I never forgot.
Back
But
to what David Tardozzi used to say to me, that when you witness greatness, you know it.
yes, absolutely, that is just perfect way
Yeah.
of putting it. And
And Phil,
it was a shame that he did rub so many people up the wrong way, because he came back to the TT and won, didn't he, for Honda?
yeah,
Yeah. And yeah, I think the biggest cheer at the TT, though, sadly, was when, well, I say sadly, when Mike Hailwood beat him when he
beat
came
him.
back on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Ducati, wasn't he?
Well,
Yeah.
when he won that F1 race at the TT, Honda Britain bought out a CB7, a 750cc4 with some Sealy bits and a fairing on, and called it the Reed replica.
Ah, they did.
But they
That's
only
quite
made
right.
it for 1 year
Yeah.
because Reedy started getting arsy and demanding royalties. And
Yeah.
next year, the bike was painted white and called the Honda Britain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there you are. There's a trivia point for you. I only
Well,
know
that's
this because I was interviewing Gerald Davison, Honda,
right.
long-time Honda boss and inventor of Herco and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And possibly the only genuinely impressive mind I ever met in the management of the British motorcycle industry. And I'm interviewing about Honda V4 camshaft failures,
Yeah.
sensitive subject. And you tell how bright Gerald was. About the third time I listened to the tape back, when I got to a sensitive bit, he'd drop in something about racing, and I'd be off like a fish on a hook.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, Julian, we will see the Oval Piston NR again, will we? And
Yeah.
Phil came up in conversation, and this is with my tape recorder on.
Yeah.
Gerald said, "Yes, Phil Reed, first class rider and a first class shit." And Mr. Davison, I've got my tape recorder on. Yes, you know,
Yeah.
that is, Phil rubbed lots of people up the wrong way unnecessarily.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
And racer rubs teammate up the wrong way. Who cares? Normal behaviour. But he managed to,
It's a terrible shame, but often geniuses, it's the same in any sport, are very difficult to manage, and getting the best out of them can sometimes be like that, can't it?
That championship he won it was at the 250 Yam with Helmut Pfaff.
Yeah.
Privateer, it was an astonishing achievement.
Yeah.
Absolutely astonishing. And he was, as you just described the Spa scene beautifully, he was an absolutely, we have very rarely seen a better motorcycle racer.
No.
Including Mike Hailwood here.
Yeah. He was right in the class of my all-time favourite, Mike Hailwood. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They had some good races as well, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean,
quite often in Britain, Hailwood on the Honda 4 or the 6, and Reed on that Yamaha 4. A Yamaha 2-stroke 4-cylinder. Whoa,
and he could rattle Aggo as well.
I saw them, and yeah.
He rattled Aggo. I mean, I remember I had to compare something, I think at Mallory Park years ago, some anniversary do. And Reedy and Aggo were on the panel. And every time Reed started talking at great length, Aggo looked like he'd rather be anyone else, get his phone out and start texting other people.
No, I don't think they were great mates, but
no, definitely not.
Well, I've got to remember that 76. My first year at MCN, MV lent him a bike or 2 bikes, and he rode a few races in Britain as a sort of farewell. I think, and a farewell to MV. And I went to Cadwell Park with him. He had a coach transporter, didn't he, Phil Reed? I remember going in the coach transporter with him, and he rode the MV. Yeah, that's it. He rode the MV at Cadwell Park. So yeah, good memories, and I've done a few things with him much more recently. But he was
and he was,
but a genius, as I say. Sometimes that's the way it is, and he was right up there.
As you said right at the start, all those, let's call them character flaws.
Yeah.
And there were character flaws, means he's not remembered as the genius racer he was.
No, that's right. And all the no, no, all the charming people, all the people that had the character of Barry Sheene, are remembered much more warmly. But to ride a motorcycle, there was not many better be produced since the start of Grand Prix racing.
I mean,
in
fighting teammates.
1949. Yeah.
Yeah, try being Barry Sheen's teammate and see how comfortable that felt.
Well, I tell you, that would have, that would have been a very interesting combination, wouldn't it? Yeah. That was quite interesting, that race in '76, because obviously it was Barry coming in to be world champion, and Phil Reed really his last season and stepping away, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, there was a race at Le Mans. It was after Barry had come back from the big crash. His teammate, a young bloke from Northampton called Julian, beat him at Le Mans.
Oh my God. And then wrote a few, got a comment in Motorcycle News. It wasn't too complimentary to Barry.
Yes.
I don't think he didn't get a works bike after that, did he? I think that
he got home to find out all the spares had migrated from his workshop back. Barry had sent the truck up.
Yeah. I remember that very well, and I remember Keith doing it and thinking, you're playing with fire here. Be very, very careful.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably slightly about as comfortable as being Marc Márquez's teammate this weekend. But,
that's going to be some battle.
I haven't looked forward.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I haven't looked forward to a race quite as much for quite a while, Nick, because this is, all these forces are coming together, and you know what it'll mean to Pecco if he can't beat Marc.
I think it will be. It's here we are. Newspaper man coming at me. It's a race, 2 races he has to win.
Yes,
that fair?
There is no choice.
Yeah,
this is absolutely the crunch time. It really is.
Yeah.
If Pecco can't beat him on the same bike round Mugello, I go back to the question I posed almost jokingly a bit earlier, Nick. What does he do?
Yeah.
How can you stay with Ducati?
Yeah. And as we see, Vallega coming up from Superbikes, and it'll be interesting as the test rider. Yeah. Cool. Do you think I could get a flight now to Florence?
Yeah, no.
Bologna?
Absolutely. The Bulega thing you mentioned is dead right.
Yeah.
Because that is an investment for Pirelli's in 2027 in Grand Prix.
Yeah.
That the man and he's testing next year. And next year, Bulega will be testing the 2027 bike on Pirelli's.
Yes.
And if you're the Italian in the Ducati team, evening, Pecco, I'm sorry to rattle you again, you're looking over your shoulder, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. Well, that's top sportsman. That's what you're always doing, isn't it? Yep. Looking over your shoulder in all sports. Now, Toprak, he's not looking over his shoulder at the moment, is he?
Well, he is, and he can't see anybody.
Yeah. No. What a ride by him. What a weekend for him at Misano in the World Superbikes. And I think it was a statement to everybody, don't you? One, I'm going to retain this title. 2, I'm ready to take on MotoGP.
Yes, I mean, Bulega there was some bad luck. He got knocked off and all that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that happens. And Toprak beat him in the first race in a straight head-to-head anyway.
Yeah.
So let's not. I don't think I'm going to pretend that Bulega would have won that weekend at all. I think obviously the gaps would have been smaller if Bulega was out there. And World Superbike it's a 2-man race, isn't it? And frankly, Lowe's is bimotor rostrum notwithstanding, which was lovely to see.
Great to see.
There are 2 world-class riders in World Superbike, and they are a street. Alvaro Bautista is doing the Pecco Bagnaia impersonation in that paddock.
Yeah.
Slagging the bike off and suffering from the usual Bologna employee relations policy of of hanging you out to dry and throwing you out the door.
Yeah.
And saying
Alvaro's had a good run, hasn't he? He's had a very good run indeed. He's done brilliantly, I think, from obviously the smaller classes in MotoGP and the world title.
Championships in the Grand Prix paddock, and he's had world championships in the Superbike paddock.
Yeah.
But at Ducati, you start with those games and moaning about the bike and getting hammered by your teammate, and that's your lot. He's moaning about the contract, Ducati not sticking with the contract. Oh, really?
Yeah. And the other big news in World Superbike, Michelin tyres.
Yes. I mean, we had this swap of Michelin and Pirelli swapping paddocks in 2027. And it's going to turn both of them upside down, because the design philosophy of those two companies is at polar opposite ends of the spectrum. So you're going to have to redesign your superbike, you're going to have to redesign your Moto Grand Prix bike, because, and this is a phrase that originated with Neil Spalding, the tyre, when you've got a one-make formula, a one-tyre formula, a one-tyre rule, the tyre designs the bike.
Yeah.
And that's it. You've got to, if you're Grand Prix, you're going from these stiff, almost, no-feel Michelins to squidgy Pirellis that degrade a lot during the race. Pirelli are quite happy to, for lap times to get slower through a race. Michelin have never been like that. They, demand a little more maybe from the rider. And
will it make a difference between which riders swap the class, that swap the championships?
Well, that's a good question, Nick, isn't it? Because I'm already saying that, Buliga going that way is tyre related. Him becoming, he could win the World Superbike Championship, which does help.
Yeah.
But he'll win it on Pirellis and bring that experience to Moto Grand Prix testing and probably to the paddock.
Yeah.
Going the other way, will anybody go the other way? I suspect somebody will. Who's going to be sat out of the Grand Prix paddock with a load of Michelin experience? Would it be a Miguel Oliveira? Would it be
Jack Miller?
Jack Miller's an obvious case, isn't it? That's going to Yamaha.
That's right.
And Jack, you would see, would be at home in the Superbike paddock, and he'd be damn fast.
Oh, he'd be quick, and as you say, and I think he'd enjoy it. I think it'd be a big loss to the MotoGP paddock, but that's life, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Yeah. And he's riding in the 8 hour on the factory Yamaha.
Yeah.
Which is a superbike, effectively, of course. Really, is he? You start seeing, I might be making 22 out of 2 and 2, but you can see a progression, can't you? Or
you certainly can, and I think especially with Ducati, can't you? I think they've been pretty wise, pretty forward thinking.
Yeah, as usual with Gigi.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Yeah.
So I was interested also the Superbikes crowd, 76,000 over the weekend. That's a great crowd, isn't it, for Misano? And
not bad at all, is it?
No, I think that's top class, and And
always a big following for Ducati, of course, because you ain't far.
Of course, that's their nearest track. But
I've got less than a minute left, Nick.
Rightio. Well, right. I've got my throttle going. I'm waiting for the tapes to go up.
Bayliss in BSB.
Well, finally, Jules, round 3 of the British Superbike Championship at Snetterton, and a new name in the Supersport class, Ollie Bayliss, 22-year-old Australian and the son of Troy Bayliss, who I can't remember, but now I do, was the British Superbike champion way back in 1999, and of course went on to win that World Superbike Championship, 3 times. So good luck to Ollie Bayliss at Snetterton. And that's about it. Once again, most enjoyable, plenty of memories. And now we are lucky boys, because next week we will be thinking about chips and mayonnaise, cold beer, windmills, thousands of push bikes, and a pilgrimage to the cathedral. Yes, next week it's all about Assen. See you then.